Red Dead Redemption 2 introduces us to the various members of the Van der Linde gang before the events of the first Red Dead Redemption. Over the course of this game and its predecessor, many of the gang members meet harsh fates fitting of dangerous lives. I'm Will from Game Rant, and today we're talking about every member of the Van der Linde gang and what happens to them. This should go without saying, but spoilers ahead. First, let's talk about who makes it out alive. A lot of the gang's less prominent criminals were able to live on after their time with the gang. Simon Pearson, the gang's cook, was one such member. He was able to run the general store in Rhodes after he leaves the Van der Linde gang. Simon is able to settle down once again, but still holds on to a photograph of the family he lost. Mary Beth Gaskill moves on to become a successful romance novelist under the pen name Leslie DuPont. John Marston can actually receive one of these books if he meets her in the epilogue at the Valentine train station. Mary Beth easily has one of the most peaceful character endings in the game. Tilly is able to make it out more or less unscathed, unlike her departure from the Foreman brothers gang. You can also find her in the epilogue after she's married to a Haitian lawyer and settled down in a large house in Saint Denis. The Reverend Swanson ironically is less attached to his faith throughout the game, but would find himself after leaving the gang. He would go on to move up north and become the minister of the First Congregational Church of New York. Josiah can be found quietly leaving the gang later into the story. While his fate is not spelled out in the epilogue, it can be assumed he made it back to his family in Saint Denis. Sadie Adler would pursue the path of a bounty hunter after the events of the game. It's certainly not the safest path one of these characters has taken, but she's alive as far as we can tell. The fate of Charles Smith is actually fairly simple. He helps John build up his house and hunt down Micah, then moves up to Canada. Now to talk about the gang members who met their end at the hands of their enemies. Lenny Summers is killed when the gang attempts to escape via the rooftops of Saint Denis after a robbery gone wrong. His death furthers the collapse of the gang and is certainly a tough moment for both Arthur and the player. Jose was the voice of reason within the gang, so his death spelled doom for his companions as Dutch became more and more violent without him. He is also killed in the Saint Denis robbery by Agent Milton. Kieran Duffy arguably has the most brutal death in the entire game. He is captured by his former gang and tortured for information on the Van der Linde gang. He is then mutilated, decapitated, and sent back to the gang on horseback to send a message. Sean McGuire is killed during the Clements Point chapter by a sniper working for the Gray family. Sean's death unfortunately leads to the demise of another gang member, Karen Jones. The fate of Karen isn't explicitly mentioned, however, hints in the epilogue point to her succumbing to alcoholism as a result of Sean's death. She isn't directly killed by an enemy, however, her death is caused by the actions of one. The money man of the gang, Leopold Strauss, is killed by the Pinkertons. He shows a lot of backbone in his final moments, however, as it is revealed that he did not spill any information about the gang. The main character of the first game, John Marston, is forced to hunt down the remaining members of the gang. After doing so, government agents come to finish off both John and his family. In an emotional scene, John and Uncle are gunned down by the agents in order for the remaining Marston family to escape. Finally, here are the members of the gang done in by the gang itself. First is Molly O'Shea, Dutch's lover. She drunkenly proclaims that she is the rat within the gang and is executed by Susan Grimshaw. Susan later admits that this was done to spite Dutch, as Agent Milton confirmed that Molly was not the rat. Susan would later meet a grisly fate of her own, as she is shot by Micah during a standoff. She would die during the chaos that would follow, as Pinkertons would come to arrest the gang. Javier Escuela is able to survive the events of the second game, but would rather meet his end in the first. John would hunt him down to Nuevo Paraíso in Mexico and chooses to either shoot him outright or hand him over to the government. Bill Williamson is similarly killed in Mexico and is either shot by John or Abraham Reyes. Micah Bell is revealed to be the rat all along and is tracked down and shot by Dutch and John. His death would lead to the events of the first game, as the government would use his body to find John. As the player character, Arthur's death is determined by his honor. He is either shot or stabbed by Micah, or succumbs to his wounds and tuberculosis. It is a heartbreaking end for his character, and he is buried by Charles in Ambarino. The head of the gang, Dutch van der Linde himself, meets his end once John has him cornered. He warns John of the government's true intent before jumping off of a cliff. That was every member of the Van der Linde gang and what happened to them. For more games and articles like this, remember to drop by GameRant.com. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you next time.